This is about my seventh take of this, and clearly the computer or the camera doesn't like how much white space there is on the board. So I've covered the board in as many logos as I can fit on it, so we can go ahead and get this done. There's some names out there right now. Yeah, some names out there right now for trade, and I just want to discuss first off. A lot of these names are just generated by the media, in my opinion, anyways, and I don't think necessarily this means they're the guys to move, because this is that time of year, right, where we're starting to see trade rumors ramp up. Now, December 1st is the deadline for William Nylander to sign a contract if he wants to play in the NHL this year, and of course the trade deadline is at the end of February. So while it looks like we're like forever away from something major, we're not. Not really. Not really. The season is very quick. Take it from somebody who's watching games every day and suddenly looks and goes, wow, we got 17 games in by some of these teams already? Yep. So 17, 16, 15, depending on which team you cheer for, or if it's Florida, 12 games into the season. There's some interesting names out there. Daniel Sprong's been mentioned. Darren Dreger's mentioned it a couple of times. It's out there. I'll say this. If Pittsburgh wants to make a big shift, if Jim Rutherford's looking to make a big shift with the team, Sprong's not the guy. Now, I've also heard Hornquist. Hornquist right now wouldn't have tremendous trade value either, and that's the trick. Do you trade somebody who isn't playing very well and risk not getting much of a return and looking like a fool after, or do you trade a young guy who may very well go somewhere else and flourish so you can pick up somebody who can help you right now, and 2 years down the road we're talking about how ridiculous that trade was. Sprong has had an underwhelming start for Pittsburgh, but Rutherford doesn't seem like a guy who's going to trade him out. I don't see it happening. Nylander. The closer we get to December 1st, the more likely it is we see him get traded. And Carolina, as mentioned, literally almost every day I see Carolina Nylander, Carolina Nylander, Carolina Nylander. Give it a break. And then I keep seeing, oh, Carolina doesn't have anybody that can fill the net. Okay, but if they move one of their vaunted blue liners, then they're going to have a hard time keeping it out of their own net, and they're already at that level anyways. And, you know, Canes fans will say, well, we're not going to trade Slavin. And I agree, you don't trade Slavin. But when I see people say, well, just Falk for Nylander 1-for-1. No. Nylander's potentially a dynamic forward who could be an 80-point guy. No. No, 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 and no. If that trade goes down, I'm telling you, that would be insane. Pesce, I don't think goes anywhere either. So I'm not sure. And I said it before, you know, do you look at Dougie Hamilton going to Toronto, a team that would have drafted him if Boston didn't have that draft pick all those years ago? I don't know. I think Nylander for Hamilton makes a lot of sense. And Hamilton's run in Carolina hasn't been fantastic, and it'd be interesting to see if they're willing to make that move. And with the guy who's the GM in Carolina, you just never know. Puljujarvi is out there as well because there were rumors of tension between him and the Edmonton Oilers organization. I say rumors because I haven't heard it from his agent. As far as I know, he hasn't directly said anything about tension. And of course, just a week ago, we heard about how Cassian's potentially looking at a trade, and then Cassian came out and denied it. So everything taken with a grain of salt when it comes to trade rumors. But Puljujarvi, somebody would take a flyer on him. Somebody somewhere would say, yeah, we'll take him. Puljujarvi is a potentially dynamic forward, and I say potentially because I've seen that speed, I just haven't seen that finish. And I understand people are going to say, well, you know, he's not getting a chance from Coach McClellan, and you can be completely right about that. But sometimes there's a reason why a guy doesn't get a lot of ice time, so that can go both ways. And Tanner Pearson, I've been reading a lot about the Kings with Tanner Pearson. Here's the problem. Pearson's got 1 point in, I think it's 11 games. It might be 12 now. He's not doing much of anything for his cap hit. And teams that are rumored to be in on him are looking for scoring. Well, it's not Tanner Pearson. So I'm not sure which one of those guys is going to get a major return or which one of them gets traded. But the fact is that now we're a few weeks out from the Maple Leafs seriously exploring the option of trading Nylander, because you can't have an asset like that sitting on the sidelines, not do anything with it, and then potentially flame out in the playoffs. If you can get a piece now that can work, if somebody's willing to give you fair market value for Nylander, you at least have to look at it. And names I've added, well, Josh Hosang, who's putting up, I guess, decent numbers in the American Hockey League, I think Lou will have him moved out. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't stick around. Detroit, I'm on Nyquist's watch. Nyquist makes $4.75 million a year. Detroit can eat some of that money in order to trade him, and Nyquist is playing relatively well right now. So if Ken Holland is really thinking, we're not going to do it this year, we're below 500, we're not going to make the playoffs anyways, I would not be surprised to see Nyquist move sooner rather than at the deadline. And Riley Smith in Vegas. His numbers have been really, really poor. And Riley Smith, in his career, didn't look anything like the Riley Smith last year of Vegas. I mean, I watched him in Dallas, Florida, Boston. Very good, solid top 9 forward. But he never struck me as a top line guy. So what he did in Vegas last year was truly a career year. And with the cap hit and with other situations, I'm almost tempted to put Pacioretty on the board. The guy has 2 goals and 0 assists in, I think it's 12 games. That really has turned out to be McPhee's touch. McPhee has it, and I know Capitals fans are going to know what I'm talking about. That he'll make a trade that you look at it at the time and you go, I guess that'll work. But somehow the asset he gets back just belly flops. It didn't happen last year. Last year, everything he touched in Vegas turned to gold. He had the Midas touch. This year, it really hasn't been that. So, for Vegas, I'm surprised we haven't heard much more about moves being made. But if I had to hazard a guess, I would say Riley Smith would be one on the way out. Not Marchessault, not Carlson, obviously. Although, the one thing with Carlson is this. He's only got a 1-year extension, so he's up again next year. If he continues to produce at the rate he's producing now, he's not going to be able to justify getting a raise. But if you can sell somebody in the idea, you know what, he's still a 40-goal scorer. He can still do that. He just hasn't caught on yet. I'm just saying, crazier things have happened, right? Because Vegas, if they continue on the track they've been on right now, they're going to be sellers at the deadline in February. If it continues the way it's been, which is just baffling, bonkers. Goaltending. Philly could use a backup. I know Pickard's been better lately, but I think they really want to solidify who their backup is. Calgary, what are they going to do with Smith? Smith's numbers have been down. Riddick looks like he's ready to steal the job. What happens there? Allen, I got a question mark there because Jake Allen's numbers have been down. What does St. Louis do with him? Is there a move potentially on the way, especially if Johnson outperforms him for an extended period? Ottawa needs a backup, so they may very well have a deal they can work out with somebody else for a backup, say Philly. But does Neuwirth qualify as a big upgrade on what Condon was? Not really. 3 goaltenders in Carolina. Eventually, they're going to have 2 that are healthy at the same time, and they're going to have to make a decision. And so, for a team like Ottawa that's looking for a solid backup, they may very well have a deal to work out with Carolina as well. And Pittsburgh. Matt Murray's numbers have been down. Is DeSmith a starter? Is Pittsburgh going to look for more assurances in net? Again, Jim Rutherford, he's not scared to make the right move when he needs to. I'm not sure if Sprong's the right move to make. But let me know which guy that you think is out there that could potentially be moved. And remember, we will often see names on these boards all year. That's why I didn't do the whole TSN. They have their trade bait board. I'm not doing that because we're wrong 9 times out of 10. And the guy that we think, he has to get moved. The only time that we're usually right is when it's a rental at the deadline and the team's a seller. Then it doesn't require any amount of expertise, any amount of inside knowledge really to know, that guy's probably going to go. So let me know who's not on the board that you think is on the trade market right now. Pittsburgh's in a slump. Who might they look to move out? The Hawks are in a huge slump. They've made the move behind the bench. Which players on their roster do you think potentially get moved? It's an interesting conversation. It's not one that I like to talk about a lot because it gets into wild speculation, rumors, and at some point somebody's going to say, well, Shannon thinks this guy's getting moved. And then that turns into Shannon says this guy's getting moved. And then next thing you know, there's a rumor. I heard you said that the Pettersson was getting moved. What's wrong with you? What? No. So, that's the kind of thing you want to watch for. But what interests me is goaltenders. Are we going to see big movement with goaltenders this year? Because there are a lot of teams that are looking for goaltending, looking to solidify that position. So let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.